Meet screen, so that's why my moderator, Miss Rebecca, is here to help with us. And to get started here, we're going to go to the second slide. And I don't like to use a lot of presentation tools because I'm actually going to get into Google Classroom and show you firsthand some of this stuff. But you probably know this, but just in case, we might have some newbies out there. Creating a classroom, we're going to talk about just inviting our students and looking at the stream. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here. We're going to stop presenting this screen. And we are going to go back in here, and we have to present a different screen now because this is the part that gets a little clunky. Come on, open up. It's not, come on. It's thinking about it. Maybe it's because we have so many people in here.
Yeah, I noticed that recording was a bit slow.
Yeah, it's a little clunky. Everything's a little bit choppy. All right. I am going to go into my classes right here. Share. There we go. Okay, so when you first get into Google Classroom, of course, you see this screen here. And of course, to create a class, we just go up here to the plus sign and you click on it, and you're going to be given the option of join class and create class. Now, if you don't see the create class, what you need to do is you need to email me, and we're going to get you in the right group so you can create a class at some point, because that's really important, because I kind of think we're going to be using Google Classroom from now on as a part of our just daily classroom use for our students. So you of course join class, that's for our students and for us if we're joining a PD. But for us to create a class, we hit the create class, and then we're able to go right in. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to open up my classroom here, my practice classroom. I have two students. One of them happens to be Becky. I'm going to go in right in here. And this is this classroom actually I built back in May, and when we were doing some training then. So this already has some stuff in it, which is what I wanted to show you, some of the basics of our classroom. So this is the stream, and in the stream, of course, I can add announcements for students or for whoever's coming into my classroom, whether it be teachers or whoever it is. And this is where all of my assignments are going to stack. Now they stack on top of another, which means that if I'm in my mind, I'm saying, okay, first I want this assignment, then I want this assignment. You kind of have to think it through a little bit. Now you can move them by right over here, clicking on the three dots, but sometimes they always don't do that. Google Classroom is awesome, but every once in a while there's a little bit, just like with any kind of technology, there can be a little kink somewhere. So bear with it, please. It's just part of our technology, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't always work the way we expect it to. But most of the time it should. So here's our stream. And you're going to notice that I've had some assignments that we did here in May, and you'll notice up here that I have my Google Classroom link up here for my Meet, and I'm going to show you about that as well, like how to turn it on, how to turn it off, and what the proper techniques of that are. So in my stream, since I have these assignments, how do I get those on my stream? And that's going to be under your classwork. Okay, and this is actually the second slide, and I'm not going to go back and forth. We can also get you a copy of the slideshow if you wanted. It's just like basically just some bullets and different things there. So under classwork, I have the ability to create, and the things I can create an assignment, I can create a quiz assignment, question materials, or I can reuse posts that I've already done. So if I've used Google Classroom in the past, I can pull up a post that I've used in this classroom, I believe in it, from another classroom as well. And one of the big important things are topics. And I'm going to start with topics because topics are super, super important for your Google Classroom. And let me tell you why. When students are in Google Classroom, everything is just a big list, especially if you've got lots of assignments in there. And let's say that you want to revisit an assignment that we did 2 weeks ago, and you're like, oh, okay, remember, I think I posted it on, I think it was like May 18th, and so they're trying to search, and it can be a little tricky for them. But if I put a topic on it and I go, it's the one that we did on whale sharks, and they're like, ah, whale sharks. So right over here, Now, since I'm in my teacher view right now, I'm not in my student view, but right over here, they have all of their topics listed, and they can click on the topic for whale sharks or, great white sharks or whatever it is that you've been focusing on. And when they click on that topic, any assignment that is assigned that topic will be like in their view at that time. So it's almost like they're filtering, and filtering is a skill that we all need to know how to do. And it's going to help our students to find those assignments a little bit quicker, especially if they have assignment they haven't turned in and you're like, you know what, you haven't turned in this assignment. Yes, Google Classroom keeps track of that for them, but I guarantee you, if somebody hasn't turned in their stuff, they might tell you, hey, I can't find that assignment. I know they would never say that, right? Yes, they will. I've even had students who have tried to change the grades in Google Classroom. They can't do that. It's impossible, but they can make it look like they have. So they're going to try to push your buttons a little bit and push that envelope. And so one way to avoid that, of course, is by adding a topic. You go, well, all you have to do is search for the topic, and then, oh, okay. So that's why the topic is so important. So you can add as many topics as you want, and you don't have to do it here. You can actually do it as you're creating the assignment. So that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to go ahead and create an assignment. Okay. Now, this is something that I've seen in many Google Classrooms, including my own kids' Google Classroom, where the assignment wasn't well spelled out for the students and they didn't know what to do. So, of course, it's asking you for a title. You want to make sure you title it. And, you want to be concise, of course, when you title an assignment, whale, shark, spreadsheet, whatever it may be. Okay. And then here in the instructions, now the instructions say optional. I wish that optional wasn't there, because a lot of times teachers don't put the instructions in here. And then the kids are like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this assignment. I've had lots of kids, they've come into our virtual office and they've asked us to look at something. And I'm like, well, what are you supposed to do here? I don't know. And it's like, okay. So having those instructions for your students here is critical. You got to think that we're in this remote situation. This is the way we need to be thinking now, even though we may be going back, and being in the classroom, and we may have that opportunity to talk to our kids, but we have to think in Google Classroom like we're not going to get a chance to see them for this assignment. We might be able to say, don't forget to do that assignment, but to actually sit down with them and go through the instructions. So you want to make sure that your instructions are concise, but you also want to make sure that they're complete, so they know what exactly they are to do. So the instruction, the optional part, I don't know why they have optional on there. It should be, I think this should be a mandatory piece of the assignment. Okay, and the add part. I know a lot of us are really big fans of Microsoft Word documents, and I'm going to tell you that adding a Microsoft Word document to a Google Classroom assignment is not a good idea. It's really not. You should use a Google document and anything that's within Google, or upload that Microsoft Word document to your Google Drive and convert it to a Google Docs before you give it to your kids. And I'm going to tell you why. I have seen, we've been doing this for a couple of months now, and we've had lots of kids. We've had teachers come in saying, my kids can't see this assignment. And the reason they can't see the assignment is because it's a Word document. And if their device, maybe they're on their phone, maybe their phone doesn't read Microsoft Word documents. You've got to think of the end user when you add something to an assignment. If you are using this file one with the paperclip, I tell people stay away from the paperclip and use what's in your Google Drive. That's why if you upload it to Google Drive, it's there, and then from there it just slides right over to Google Classroom. That's how Google Classroom works, and that's the way it works best. So just try to stay away from the file if you can. Even if it's a PDF off of your desktop, put it up into Google Drive first. That way you can make copies of it for your kids. It's kind of like it's a way better option for you. So use Google Drive, use the link if you're linking to websites or whatever. And of course, if there are YouTube videos out there that you wish to put into your Google Classroom, by all means do, but before you do, make sure that you view them. Even if it's a video, that Berenstain Bear video that you've seen 101 times, make sure you watch it 102 times, because maybe this person that uploaded it, maybe you found a different one and it's worded exactly the same way and titled exactly the same way, but it could have been uploaded by somebody else. And if we don't know who uploaded it, they could have spliced it together with something for just a brief second that could be inappropriate, and we don't want that for our kids. We don't want that for us either. We don't need Channel 7 coming in and saying, hey, we heard that. No, that didn't happen. So be careful of using YouTube videos, because Google Classroom doesn't have that filter that our district has, and it will kind of slide through. And I've seen it many times where we've had things slide through. I'll give you an example. A couple of years ago, we were doing a training on Google Classroom, and there was a surfing competition, and it was on the day before, and then we found it on YouTube. And the shark took this guy down under the water, and the two commentators, they both said something kind of inappropriate. And we were saying, okay, we're going to pull up this video. So we pulled up the video, and people were like, oh my gosh, they said something inappropriate. We're like, oh my gosh, how'd that get through? This is Google Classroom. It's because we needed to watch the video first. So that's why watching the video is super important for if you're gonna assign it in Google Classroom. Again, stay away from the file. Now we have create here. So let's say that I'm going to want you to work on a journal piece, and I'm going to want you to work on a Google document. So I can actually click the create button. I can create a Google document, and then I can assign it in Google Classroom. So if I do that, if I click on create, and see, and now I have the option of all of the G Suite applications to choose from. I can choose a form. I can have my kids fill out a form if I wanted to, and I don't have to make it a quiz if I don't want to. Drawing, whatever it is. So when I create that, then I can assign that to my students. But if I've already created it, that's when I'm going to go over here to the add and go to my Google Drive. And I think, let's see, I'm not sure if you're able to see this part, or if this is in another window here, but I'm just going to pick a document and put into my my Google Classroom here really quickly, if it will go quickly. Things are slowing down, I think. I think my kids might be on the network. So I'm going to pick a document here. I'm going to add it. Okay. And right now it says that my students can view this file. Now, what does that really mean? What is the difference between all of these things here? So if a student can view the file, all they can do is look at it. It's one file. It's almost like one piece of paper, and they can just look at it. Okay, that's nice. But if I want my students to do something with that, I'm going to want to give them edit rights. So another option would be students can edit the file. That might be a good idea if you've got like 4 kids that are working on it. But if you've got a whole entire class, and like, we have all these people in this meet right now, that might be kind of tricky for us, because we're going to have all of these people working on one document, and we're going to be stepping over each other and probably deleting, and that might be great mayhem for about like 2 minutes, and then it's going to be like, I don't want that anymore. So you probably don't want to have students edit one file unless you have them working collaboratively in a small group. And I'll show you that here in just a minute, how to assign that to a small group. So the best option is to make a copy for every student. And this is really powerful. I know right now we're not in the buildings, but if we were in the buildings and I get a new student, and they have their email address and everything, and they've entered my Google Classroom, I don't have to run down to the copy machine and make them a copy of this, because it's already going to make them a copy of it. Once they're in my classroom, it's there for them, right? So that's important, having that make a copy for each student. That's super important. So I'm going to go ahead and say make a copy for every student. Okay, so here's my document. And I don't have to just add one document. I can add lots and lots of things to this assignment, right? That's kind of a nice thing. Now, let's look over here for who the assignment is for. Right here, we have, this is from my practice class, right? And I can choose any other class that I have. And I have lots of classes in here because I've done lots of trainings on different things. So that's why I have so many in there. But this one says all students. This is so powerful. because Becky's in this classroom, and I have another one of my other accounts, Digital Badges, is in here, and I've actually been assigning things to one or the other, but not to both. Now, if I assign it to just one person, or if I assign it to 3 people, only those 3 people, those 3 students get the assignment. So if I click here and I'm going to take the check mark off of all students, and I'm going to just send this to Digital Badges. So Becky's not going to get this assignment. She's not going to get a notification that she has another assignment, and she's not going to know that I assigned this to Digital Badges. Now that's really powerful. If Digital Badges needs some extra help, which they might for this assignment, no one's going to know that they got this assignment. Or maybe I want to give Becky this really cool assignment because, she's so far ahead of everybody else, but I still want to challenge her. So I'm going to give her a challenge, and that way, she's working on that challenge while everybody else is finishing up this one other assignment. So it's super powerful in that way. And again, I can assign this to not just one student. I can assign it to 3 or 4 different students and keep them in a group, and here's their group assignment. Really, really powerful. So make sure you're using that, the all students versus some of the students that you're sending out. Points available. Now you have the option to change this. You don't have to just do 100 points. You can make it ungraded if you wanted to, or you can add it. If it's 35 points, you can put 35 points in there. Whatever that point value is, it's right there for you. You have the ability to change it to whatever it is that you want, which is nice. Other grading scales, they only do like 90s, or they go down by 25s. So this is nice that you're able to put in the exact number that you want. Due date. I recommend you putting a due date on stuff. I don't always put due dates on things when I'm doing training, but if you do put a date and time, if I say it's going to be the 11th, then I can actually even post a time. So if I'm in my 3rd period class, and at the end of 3rd period it ends at whatever 10:32 a.m., I can put in here 10:32 a.m. and after that minute, that assignment will be considered late. And you can't argue with Google because Google timestamps everything. And that's really kind of a nice thing too for us, for our documentation. So we can go back and look at when everybody turned assignments in, and we can say, you know what, this individual turned their assignment in at 11:52. It was due at 10:32. So it's considered late. Yes, he turned it in, but it's late. So putting a date and time on it is good for you, and it's good for your documentation. Although it will still timestamp when they've turned things into you. Don't get me wrong about that. But it's just, to me, it just kind of keeps everything a little more organized for you. And topic, here's where you want to put a topic. So I'm going to go ahead and create a topic, and I'm going to call this one whale sharks. I'm sorry, I'm a big shark person, so we're going to leave it like that. And you can also now, this is new, this is fairly new, you can add a rubric. So if you have a rubric of how to measure how the students are doing on this particular assignment, what's going to get them an A, what's going to get them a B, what's going to get them a C, or whatever grading format that you're going to use, you can put a rubric in here as well. Okay. Now up here at the assign, if I just click assign, it's going to assign it right now, and Digital Badges is going to get that notification. But what if I don't want this to go out? This is an assignment that's going to be for tomorrow, and tomorrow I have a doctor's appointment, and I'm not going to be in class. We're going to have a substitute, but I want this assignment to go live at the beginning of my my class time. So I can click here on the little disclosure arrow, and I can schedule it. And when I schedule it, it's going to give me what date and what time do I want it to go live. And that's really a nice feature to have, because I can set it kind of like the old rotisserie. Yes, yeah. Set it and forget it. So yeah, so you can set the time, you can set the date, which is really nice. And I'll give you an example of a couple years ago. Everything seems to be a couple of years ago. We were doing a training for everybody. All the ITS teachers, and we had some assignments that we were going to pop out to them, and I made the assignments start to go live at 7:30. I had one go live at 7:30, one at 7:45, and while we were setting up, because I knew everybody was going to get there early. And I had somebody come up to me and go, "How are you doing that?" And I go, "Well, doing what?" And I'm like trying to get the snacks out and stuff, and well, you're sending out these assignments, but I don't see you on your computer. And I go, oh, I set them up yesterday. And they were like, what? You know, because it was kind of like when the scheduling feature was kind of coming out. And so trying to show them how to do that. And they were really excited about it. So it is a really nice feature that I can schedule it for a later time. I can schedule it for a month from now. You know, whatever the date is that I want, a date and time that I want that to be scheduled. So, and I can do that. So that's kind of a nice little thing within the assignment. And again,
really quickly, Miss
sure.
Nisha,
Yes.
Why can't you schedule if you are doing it for multiple classes? And
yeah, I'm not sure that you can schedule it for multiple classes, because I think everything kind of works in with the one class. That one I have not tried, but let me just see. Let me just see if I were to find. I need to find another one that doesn't have a lot of people in it, so they don't get all oh my gosh, there's another assignment. So if I do these two classes, I'm not going to be able to choose specific students anymore because it's going to two classes. Now, if it says two classes here, I think maybe, yeah, no, the schedule is blanked out because it's going to try to go to two separate classes. I guess they haven't figured that coding out yet for that. So it is only for one class. Now, if I want an assignment to go out to a specific class, then I can schedule it out. But for multiple classes, no. And again, I cannot assign it to specific students in more than one class. It's one class at a time. It does have its limitations, and I'm sorry about that. So we're good on questions?
Yes, we're good.
Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and jump out of assignment here. And it's probably going to ask me, well, it just kind of went away there. All right. And I'm going to go over here to people. Okay. And you're going to notice that I have two people that are my students. And how do I invite students into my classroom? Well, there's two ways to invite your students to your classroom. One is to click the little plus sign right here to invite students. When you click on it, and you start to type in your email. I don't know if I were to type my son's email, there's my son, Peppa Pig. I can't believe he has that on there. I can click on him and then I can invite him. And what happens when I invite him is when he goes into Google Classroom, say like this afternoon or tomorrow, which he's not because he's on summer now, then he will see my classroom there and it'll say join. And he actually still has to click that join button in order to get into my classroom. The second way I can invite students into my classroom, if I go back here to the stream, right here is the class code. And I'm going to make it nice and big. And there's my class code for this particular Google Classroom. All right. And then as my students go into Google Classroom, they type in the join code and then they're in automatically. So there's two ways. I can invite them or I can just put up the code. As a former first grade teacher, I would never put the code up because I know they're going to misconstrue some of those letters and numbers and I can't get in. And so it's easier for me just to put in their email addresses to get them into the classroom and show them where to click for join. That's me personally. So I'm going to go back. Yes, do you have a question?
No, I was just going to say, I know for, I did GT and I also did robotics in the library. Mm-hmm. So I didn't always get that one-on-one time every day with the kids. And so I used to frame my code for each of the classes and put them posted in my library. So when I had a new kid come in, it was easy for them to find the code and log in. Just a tip.
Yes, and speaking of codes, we had some issues about a month ago, 2 months ago, when we first started this whole remote, we need to stay home because we don't want to get sick thing. And we had teachers that were posting their code to their Google Classroom, either like on a website or somewhere where people from the outside could see it. And that's, well, you know, we're in Isleta, so we're okay. If I have an outside Gmail account, I can get into a Google Classroom. If I have a code, it's going to let me in automatically. This right here, Digital Badges, is an outside Gmail account. It is not within our district. It's got its own entity. So, and I was able to get right into this classroom using the code. So that's something to think about. Keep that code somewhere safe. Now you're like, oh my gosh, I put the code out somewhere else and you know, what am I going to do because the code's just there? there's a way that you can actually go in. It's up here in the gear wheel. I'll just go in there right now to show you. Here's the class code right here. If I click on the disclosure arrow, I can disable the code, which means nobody else can get into my classroom, or I can reset the code. And don't worry about resetting the code, because if your kids are already in your classroom, they're safe in there. They're not going anywhere. They're not going to get kicked out because they didn't put the right code in. This is for kids that want to get in. Well, maybe want to get in, or if we have outside people that are trying to get in, when we reset that code, that old code no longer works and they cannot enter your Google Classroom. So this is a way to help yourself with that. Okay, so that's one of the things that I would definitely do. You want to make sure you keep that code safe. Yes, get it out to your students, but get it out to them either through email, or you know, right now the way our sharing properties are, and I'm kind of getting into what I'm doing later this afternoon, but is that our teacher accounts no longer allow us to share outside of the district or our teacher websites. So we could actually put it there and we'll be okay. But anything that is going outside of our district, like if I send stuff to my ITS teacher and my ITS teacher is putting it on the school website, make sure that your code isn't there. That's really, really important, because, you know, I don't like to say this, but there are some people out there who are trying to wreak havoc on us, right? And this would be a way for them to get in. I'll give you an example with Google Meet here in just a second with my own son. And we have to keep our kids safe, because if somebody were to get into a Google Classroom and then they start making inappropriate comments and doing things, yes, we can mute them and we can kind of put them in the corner a little bit. We can even remove them from the classroom, but we don't want to put ourselves even in that position where we have to do that. So keep that code safe, 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 safe. And that gets me to, let me go back to the Guardians right here. So the Guardian summaries, you want to make sure this is also turned on. If in fact you are sending out emails to guardians. Now there's been a lot of questions about the Guardian email. So I'm going to actually go back to that tab, which is right here. And you're going to see here that the Guardian of Digital Badges is actually my account. So if I want to send something about Digital Badges to their Guardian, I can do that. I can email the Guardians. Emailing the Guardians will work. What will not work is emailing students through Google Classroom, because our students use even though it is a Google account, it's also an Office 365 account, and they block heads, and it will not work for you, and you're going to get an error, and then you're going to get mad. You can say, you know, she told me this was going to work. So don't try to email students through Google Classroom, because that's not going to work. But the Guardian will work as well. Now, what the Guardian said, once they get that email, they'll get an email from Google that says, hey, would you like to get like a Reader's Digest version of what's going on in your kid's class? And then they're going to say yes or no, depending on what they want to do. And then they have the choice of either having a daily like rundown of when assignments are due, or a weekly one of when assignments are due. And I actually use, it says Misha Daniel, but it's actually another outside. Yes, I have several accounts. I'm sorry about that. But this is actually another Gmail account that I have set up, as I wanted to make sure that our outside accounts were working with this. It does work. And every day, I have it set up for daily. Every day I get a rundown of the assignments that have been assigned to Digital Badges. And it tells me when assignments are due, what the assignment is, so I can be in the know. It sends it to my email, because I'm the parent. It's going to send me to my parent email, which is kind of nice. So collecting those emails and putting them in here, yes, it can be a pain having to go in here and to do that, but it might be worth it in the long run, because then you're being very transparent for your parents, as well as keeping them informed, so that way nobody's out of the loop. That way when, you know, grades start to come out, they're not going to be like, oh my gosh, I didn't know they had this assignment due. I didn't know this. Yes, they do, because it's been sent to their email, and it's up to them, because, you know, their parents are adults, to go look at those emails and see what their kids need. So it's a really good tool to use. It takes a little bit to set up at first, you know, to get those emails. And sometimes they'll send you they give you the wrong email, which I've seen happen 100 times, or maybe there's a typo in it. It gets typed in wrong. So just be cautious of that. Just take your time to put them in there, but it will be worth it for you. I promise, because then they're going to get those reminders. And again, they can do a weekly one where it'll run down everything for the week, or daily. And I have it set up for daily for digital badges because I need to keep track of digital badges. Okay. Are there any questions about that?
I haven't seen any questions about that,
Right.
but I do have a couple of questions about how do you delete an old Google Classroom? And if I remember correctly, you can't delete them, but you can archive them.
Actually, you can delete them.
Oh, okay.
You can delete them. Yes,
and then,
you can delete them.
So if
let me show that to you. Yeah, let me show that to you right now. So I'm going to go ahead and go back out to all of my classes here. Okay, so here's all my classes. So if I want to delete a Google Classroom, first I have to archive it. And how do you archive it? You archive it, but it's got to be one that you've created. If you're part of one, you can get yourself out of it. But the 3 dots in the top right corner, anytime you see 3 dots in Google, there's something awesome in there. Look in there. It may be helpful to you. I'm going to click in here, and one of them is archive. Now, I'm not going to archive this classroom because this has lots of students in it and they are using all the stuff that's in there, but you click archive. Okay. And once you click archive, it's going to kind of gray out that classroom, and you're going to go, okay, so now what? So what you have to do is you have to get to your archived classrooms. And I'm going to click on the 3 lines that are right here next to Google Classroom. And I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bottom, and you'll see right here it says archived classes. And when I click on that, I don't have any archived classes right now because I actually do. I didn't think I had any more in there because I've been deleting several of these. So once they're in here, now you have the ability to now some of these classes are archived, and I'm just been a part of because they wanted me to help them with something. I think this one here is one that I did create. So if I click on the 3 dots here, one of them is delete, and I'm just going to go ahead and just delete this one right here. And it's going to say, hey, are you really sure you want to do this? There might be some students in there. There might be some stuff in there that they need. And I can say yes, or I can say, you know what, I want to be safe. I'll just leave it archived, or I'll just say delete. And I'm just going to delete it. Oh no! I'll probably get emails on that, but these people were from TCA, so it's okay. It was a couple of years ago. I'm not worried about it. But that's how you delete a Google Classroom. And you're going to see I have tons of classrooms in here. I just leave them in the archive because that way I don't have to see them, right? So I'm going to go back into my 3 lines, and I'm going to go back to my classes. And now here's all the classes that I currently have in my Google Classroom, both that I am a part of as a student or as a participant, and the ones that I've actually created. And you're going to be able to tell the difference usually if they've got a picture of somebody, that means that's a classroom that you're a part of, or with the little circle there. If it's one that you've created, of course, you're going to have the options with you're not going to see a little face in there. Then you'll know that that's one that actually you are a teacher of. Okay. So that's how we do that. Are there any more questions on deleting a class in Google Classroom? We're good with that, right?
Yes, ma'am. No more questions.
All right, I'm going to go back into my practice classroom because there's a couple more things I want to show you within the settings of this Google Classroom, because I want to talk about this link right here. This Google Meet link. And this is something that just appeared. We were so thankful that it appeared right after we started the remote learning. And, they pushed it out as quickly as they can. I give Google all the props for that because they really had to work hard on this one. To get a Google Meet that's assigned to your Google Classroom. And there's a few rules that go behind this. One of the rules is that the teacher should always be in there first. Now it's, and really, I don't think it's going to open without the teacher being in there first, because it's almost like it's got the nickname feature to it. This is actually like the nickname right here. Okay. That weird little thing at the end is part of the nickname. Even though we're not actually putting in, like Miss Daniel's class, because you know how it'll ask you for that nickname. Now, once I get into this Meet, then my students join, right? And we're all having a good time in there. We're talking, we're having a great conversation about sharks or whatever it is. And then it's time to leave. Wait. And since you're the teacher of that Meet, you have the ability to remove your students. Isn't this the most awesome thing we've all been praying for our whole entire teacher career, that we can remove students from our classroom digitally, and we can also mute them digitally? Wow, something we've all prayed for. And now we have the option to do that within the Google Meet, right? Because, you know, we're doing this all virtually now. But wait until all the students have exited the classroom. Treat this Google Meet like you would your regular classroom. You don't just walk out of the classroom with your bag over your shoulder, with your door open, with kids still in the room, and say, bye, I'll see you later. You don't do that, because you know those kids are in your room and they might be creating some mayhem in there when you're not there, right? Now, chances are they might not, but there's a pretty good chance that they might. And so you wait for them to exit your room, or you tell them, get out, let's go. I got to leave. I got to leave campus now. They get out, you turn off the lights, and you lock the door. That's how you leave a Google Meet. You make sure everybody's out, and then you shut the Meet down with the little telephone. When you do that, you've locked the door. Those kids can't go back into that Google Classroom, into your Google Classroom Meet without you. And I tested this with my son's account, and it works. I even copied the link of the Meet, and I'm like, haha, let me see if I can. It would not allow me to get in because the teacher was not in there, and the teacher was the last to leave. So make sure you're the last to leave, because if you're not the last to leave, then that Meet can still be open. And if it's open, it can be open like tonight, you know, and kids can get in there. And maybe they're just in there talking about Minecraft. Maybe they're just in there just saying hi to each other. But there might be a chance that they're in there saying other things to each other that might not be so appropriate. And we don't want that to happen. So we want to make sure that we close our Meets down and lock that door so our students can't be in there in that classroom without us. Okay. So that's why the Google Meet is important. Now I have mine visible here, and that's okay. That means I'll be able to use it. So, but if you don't want it there, let me show you where you go to set that up. I go back to the gear wheel. Okay, here's where we did the class code right here, right? Okay, here's where we turned on the Guardian summaries right here. And right underneath that, you're going to see Meet. Visible to students, I have it on. If I don't have it on, now it's going to be off of that main page. They're not going to see it. My Meet is not going to change. It's still going to be the same. If I turn it back on, you'll see that the code did not change at all, okay? But I can click in here, and I can copy and I can reset it. Let's say I have somebody who came into my Meet who wasn't supposed to. This happened to my son about a month and a half ago. He was in a Meet with his teacher, and there was a whole bunch of the students were in there, and the student from the outside was using an outside Google account, was trying to get in, and the teacher allowed the student in. And when the student came in, he had a strange name. It was not a name of a student, it was some other name. And then she's like, well, who are you? And he said, well, I'm Eric Daniel. That's my son's name. He saw my son's name, I guess, on there, or he was in the class with him. We're not really sure. And it freaked my son out so bad. You know, first of all, this kid could have done something inappropriate or said something inappropriate. And then maybe she could have thought it was my son, right? And so we don't want that to happen. So again, you know, resetting that link, she reset the link because he had the link. So he was in the Google Classroom with them. So, you know, don't allow anybody from the outside. You know, even if you're like, oh, well, I know that it's this kid and they're using a Gmail account. They should not be using a Gmail account to get into your Google Meet. They should be using their YISD credentials. And the same should go for any time that you're doing any type of PD or anything. You really shouldn't let people in from the outside because you never know who it might be. And we don't want anybody to say anything or do anything that would cause somebody to feel uncomfortable or to be inappropriate in any way. So that, you know, just be cautious of that. But if you need to reset it, if somebody did get the link and they weren't supposed to, and maybe they keep trying to get into the Meet, you can always just click on it and reset it. And once you reset it, then it's going to be a whole new link. And again, you're going to have to click into that link to get in there first yourself, then your students, and then you kick your students out or you ask them to leave, and then you close the meeting down. And that way, for sure, nobody else will be in that Meet with you. Okay. And we have some stuff down here on grading. I have a total points set up, and I like to show the overall grades of my students. And I can also add grade categories. This is like a newer feature too. So I can actually kind of set it up like a grade book. Now they say it's coming, but when they say something's coming, it could be a year away, it could be a year and a half away, or it could be 3 months away. We don't know for sure. But at some point, they're telling us that our Google Classroom and our SIS system, which is our grade book system that we have right now, are going to somehow meet in the middle and be able to talk to each other. We've been waiting for this. We've been praying for this, and hopefully it'll happen soon. But soon, like I said, could mean 3 months. It could mean 6 months. It could mean a year. So it's just not ready yet, but just keep that in the back of your mind that is coming at some point. So, you know, unfortunately, it's not there yet. But if you do like to have your grades in your Google Classroom, that way your kids can actually see them. I know they can see them in the hack as well. And we've had some parents who actually have gone into the Google Classroom to look at students' grades. So it's up to you whether you want to use the grades that are in here, but you can. And speaking of that, let's get to the grades. Let's see what time we got. Oh, we're down to not too much longer. And you do need to save. If you've made changes to your settings, you do need to save it. I discarded because I didn't want to save any of my changes. But you do need to click the save button that is in the top right corner, so that way any changes that you did make will be saved. That's one of the only places in Google you have to save. So I'm going to go over here to grades. Okay. And here are the grades for some of my students. You're going to see, wow, Becky is doing really well. I gave her lots of hundreds there. Wow, good job, Becky. And I have not graded some assignments here, but when I go to grade assignments, I just type in whatever it is that they got. Give them 100. I got an 80 here, an 82 here. And you also want to make sure that if they've turned something into you, that you turn it back to them. And let me tell you why that's important. Just like when a student turns in a physical piece of paper to you, they no longer have access to it. They can see it in their Google Drive, but they can't edit it or change it because they've turned it into you. And that's on purpose. So that way they're not making changes on the Google slide before you have a chance to look at it because they've turned it in. So once it's turned in, it's kind of blocked off from them until you look at it and give them a grade on it. But you need to make sure you return the work to your students. That's really important, because that way they have access to it again. And Google remembers everything. So even if like you give them like a 60, let's just say somebody didn't do their work properly, and they go home and they say, Mom, I did all this work, and they change it because you've returned it to them, and they change it. You can go into the history of a document and you can see when those changes occurred. And so again, Google is your friend. There's that documentation. So don't worry about returning work and giving a grade that, oh, gee, but now they can change it. It's not going to matter that they can change it because it's after the fact, and you'll be able to see that, and you'll be able to document that. So don't worry about that. But you do want to make sure you return their work to them so that way they have it. Because our Google Drive is kind of serves. I know we have this new thing, Bulb, that's coming in that's going to provide the portfolio system for them. But in order to put stuff in there, they're going to need to get that from their drive. And if they don't have access to it, they won't be able to add that stuff to their portfolio. So it's kind of important to do that.
Okay, Miss Misha, we do have a question.
Yes.
About how do you delete a student from the classroom? So
okay,
I
can go over that. Absolutely. Okay, we're all good on the return assignments. You just click return all, and it will return the assignments to the students. Okay. Or you can actually go in individually and do it as well if you want to, if you're grading individually. I've already looked at these assignments, so that's why I can return all. All right, so I'm going to go back to people because this is where I can start to remove people. So right here, let's say, digital badges, I don't want the student in here anymore. I can actually, I think I have to click on, here we go. I click here, and under actions, I can remove the student. You also see that there's a mute feature here. And if you allow your students to have a chat, have conversations within the classroom, which I see nothing wrong with. But you notice that one of the students might be saying something maybe that can be seen as offensive or inappropriate, you can mute them. And they are part of the classroom. They are seeing everything that's in the classroom, but they're not able to speak to other students within the classroom. So you can mute students. You cannot email them. It will not email them. Remember, it'll email the parents through the guardian aspect of it, but you cannot email the students. It'll give you an error. But you can remove them and you can mute them. Okay. And if you've muted somebody, then this will say unmute at some point if you want to give them that action back. So that's how you do that.
Apologies. I couldn't hear what.
All right, so I can actually do a number of students at a time. Let's say I have like 5 kids, and you know what? They've left the building or whatever it may be. I just click on the check marks here, and then I go under actions and again remove or mute, or so now we know how to get kids into our classroom and how to remove those students from our classroom. And there's always like a question like, well, should I use the same classroom that I used this year for next year? Because it has all this great stuff in it and I don't want to lose it. But how do I do that without having to copy paste everything over? So there's this really cool feature that's in Google Classroom. This just got me thinking about it. And if I go back to my classes, okay, here's my practice classroom, the one that I've been working on. So if I click here on the 3 dots, you're going to see where it says copy. And when I copy this classroom, what it's going to do, it's going to copy like all of my assignments that are in that classroom, and it's going to kind of put them at the top. And I can choose to use those assignments or I can choose not to use those assignments. The students are not in there. So it's kind of like I have a fresh classroom, but with all the stuff that I had from before. So that might be powerful for you. You just got to remember that there might be some assignments in there that you don't want, and you don't have to use all the assignments because they're kind of like hidden. And then you go, I want this one, and you pull it down, and then that becomes one of your assignments. And then you go through the same process of naming it, adding those instructions, super, super important. And then of course, adding the files and all of that. So I think some of the files are still connected because if they're in your Google Drive, again, they should be in your Google Drive. But it's an easier way than having to go through assignment by assignment and posting it. You just copy the whole entire classroom. I've actually done this before, and it works pretty well. It does work pretty well. Okay, so any other, we're good there. So I'm gonna go back in here. Okay, so I'm back in my Google Classroom now, and you're gonna see that I have a new slideshow that well, I didn't post the one there, but here, again, we're here in the stream, and under classwork, this is where we send out assignments. Okay. And for quiz assignment, we got about 12 minutes. I can talk a little bit about this. A quiz assignment is actually going to create a new Google form for you, and you're going to fill it out with your questions and your answer choices. Now you can use multiple choice, you can use check boxes, and you add which are the correct answers because it's gonna work like a quiz. I do not recommend copying those from classroom to classroom or copying it just that same form for later on. You can send it out to other classrooms. You just got to be careful with that spreadsheet that the Google form will create, because remember, one Google form creates one spreadsheet, right? So if I have a quiz and I send it out to 5 classes for one Google form, what's going to happen? All 5 classes are going to be on that spreadsheet. So I better make sure that one of my questions is, what period are you in? Or, if it's going to be for a large group of people, so that way I will be able to filter that and find out those students, because it's going to get a little hairy for you, and you don't want that. You don't want that. So it might be more beneficial to go to each individual classroom to assign a quiz, because otherwise you'll be coming into innovative learning and telling me that, oh my gosh, I have got all these kids and we've taken this quiz, and there's 5 classes that have taken it, and that can be a little tricky. You have a question?
No. Oh, I got a green screen to participate, but not. Okay. No questions.
Oh,
Sorry.
no questions.
I was
Okay.
letting you know that there was 10 minutes.
Okay. All right. All right. All right. So to create a quiz assignment, I'm just going to kind of show you the steps on how to do this. So I click quiz assignment, and you're going to see right now it's creating a Google form in my Google Drive for me. So now I need to go in here and I need to set it up. So this is where I would add the title of my Google form and all of the questions that I have, and I would put them into this Google form here. I want you to see this over here because this is really powerful, especially since we're in this weird COVID stuff right now. If I turn on the locked mode for Chromebooks, because what do most of our students have at home right now? They have Chromebooks. What this does is when they click on my quiz, first of all, they have to be in an Isleta account. Secondly, they have to be on a managed Chromebook. They can't be on a device like a Mac or a PC or an iPad or anything else. It has to be on one of our Chromebooks. And what it will do is first of all, if they're not on that device, they'll say, I'm sorry, you can't take the quiz. And so you have to make sure that you know your students have Chromebooks to use this feature. But what this feature will do is it will not allow them to use a different tab at the top to open up, say, the internet or something else to get answers to this quiz. It blocks everything else out. It puts them in what's called kiosk mode. So the only thing that they see is the quiz. Now, here's the really cool part. Let's say I'm a tricky student and I say, you know what? I'm going to exit this quiz. The second I exit the quiz, it's going to give me a message that says, are you sure you want to do this? Because we're going to notify your teacher. And you say, yeah, whatever. So then it's going to tell me as the teacher that the student exited my quiz. So when the student goes back into the quiz, it's going to tell me that the student went back into my quiz. So I'm going to know that as the teacher. And then that's going to give me a big red flag that this is the student that I'm going to need to be watching, and I'm going to need to check their quiz very, very carefully. So this is a really great feature to have because it's going to block everything else out except for that quiz. They're not going to be able to jump on the internet or jump into a Google Meet and ask their neighbor or anything like that. They're going to be stuck inside the quiz. So, but again, only use this if you know your students have Chromebooks that have been sent home from YISD. Because if it's a Chromebook that they just have at home, like one that I bought for my kids and they're using that one, it's going to tell them that they're not on a managed Chromebook and it will not allow them to take the quiz. Or if he gets on my Mac and tries to take the quiz on my Mac, it's going to give him that same message, or a PC or or iPad, whatever it is. It's got to be one of the Chromebooks that YISD has sent home with students in order to use this feature. So you do need to make sure that your kids have that if you want to use it, but it works really, really well. It really does. Okay. So that's how we do a quiz. I would keep the grade importing on, and that's important because then it's going to import those grades. Since this is set up as a quiz, it'll keep track of how many points it's worth and all of that, because I set that up as I'm setting up the quiz, and then at the end, how many they get right, it figures out, okay, they got 30 out of 50, or they got 60 out of 100, whatever it may be. And it'll give you the scores, and it'll port them into your Google Classroom grades. So that's kind of nice too. I don't have to grade it. Google will grade it for me. So this is a really nice feature to have, is the assigning a quiz. Okay. All right, we are down to 6 minutes. Whew. Okay. So we've talked about what we can create. A question is just out on the stream. So maybe I'm asking a question about how do you feel about COVID? How are you feeling today? And then I just kind of post that question out, and then my students will answer it. I can add points to it if I want, or I can choose not to. Now I want to talk just a little bit about material. This is a section that a lot of our kids don't go to. Let me say that again. This is a section that a lot of our kids don't go to. And this is a section that a lot of teachers want to use to put in stuff for the class. I understand that because, we want to have all of our stuff in one location, and that's great. But as a student, maybe they don't know to go there. So if you choose to use the material feature and put all of your materials into one location, you need to make sure you tell your kids where to go and how to get there. Otherwise, that material is just sitting there and no one is going to find it. I have seen this over and over again in PD classrooms. I choose not to use it. If I'm going to send you material, I'm going to make sure it's on the stream and it's actually in an assignment or a post that I put out there for them. So that way they're going to see it and they're going to take from it. But some people do like to use that material, and that's fine if you want to use it. You just need to make sure that you tell your kids, tell your students where that you're putting that information. Otherwise, they're not going to know to look there, because that's not something that they know to do right off the bat. Any questions? I hear you back on there, Becky.
Yeah, I'm just 5 more minutes.
Yes.
I just had some questions about Google Meets, but I think I answered that. You're
Okay.
good.
Okay, we're good. All right. Well, we're down to the last 5 minutes here. So I'm just going to wrap it up by going back into my my slides here. So I'm going to go back in here. Hey, I did it. Yay. Okay. And I want to get to this tab right here. This bit.ly right here. If you will go there, bit.ly/YSD20 lowercase GC, just like it is right here on the screen. Oops, I knew it was going to do that. It will be a form that you fill out, and as soon as you fill it out, it'll send you a certificate saying that you were here for this hour. You get an hour of CPE credit, and you're going to get a digital badge for Google Classroom Basics. My email address is mdaniel@ysd.net. If you have other questions that you need me to address. Also, I believe Becky has put into the chat our virtual office. We are normally there from 7:30 in the morning until 5:30 in the afternoon during the summertime, Monday through Thursday.
Okay. We do have a question really quick. From Elizabeth. She says, when you invite parents and they accept, is there any way for them not to show up on the class grade book with you having to click on them to not assign the assignments?
Oh, well, see, they're not really part of the class.
Yeah.
Unless they've joined with a code. That's why they have the when you invite the guardians, all they're getting as a guardian, that they can kind of see a little bit. All they're getting though is the Reader's Digest version. They're not going to get like the whole Google Classroom experience unless they're logging in as their student.
Can I add to the question, ma'am? What
Sure.
happened is when it said invite parents, which I did, but anytime I posted an assignment, then they would show up as a student, and then it would say, like as far as getting the grade back, or if they did something, I would have to go to assign students and actually manually click them off. Is there a way?
Okay, so what happened there is this parent, you invited them as a guardian, and they got the code for the classroom, and they joined your Google Classroom with that code. That's how they got into your classroom.
Okay.
So what you'll need to do, let me go back to my Google Classroom here. Does anybody else still need this? Can we put this in the chat, Becky?
It's in the chat.
Okay, all right, because I want to go back here so I can show you. So I'm going to share this tab here, and I'm going to go back to people. So what you're going to do is you'll see them here in the list of students. So you'll click on the check mark, and then you will remove them as a student. That's not going to mean they're going to be removed as a guardian, because they're not. If they've been invited as a guardian for the student, and you'll know that because right here, if you go to the student, you will see that the email address, because it'll give the name of the person's email address right here. This isn't, yeah. So that's how you'll do that. If you need more assistance with that, please let me know, and we'll try to guide you through it. But that's what I'm thinking is going on, is they got the code from their kid, and then they went ahead and joined the classroom. And so now you're seeing them as a student in there, because when you invite them as a guardian, they're not a student. They're just there to get the Reader's Digest version of what's going on in the class.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Because it is 9:30. I will be here for about 15 minutes, and then I have to go be a mediator at another mini Monday session that somebody else is running. But I can be here for about 15 minutes, and in the event that somebody does have any other questions, I will be more than happy to answer questions.
We have
Oh,
a
how did I
question in the chat? Yes. Did you see
How
that?
do I create the certificate? What I did was is I created that in actually Google. I think I created that in Google Slides. I created the certificate. How I got it to send to you was I had to use an outside Google account because my inside Google account will not allow me to do that, unfortunately. So my counterpart Eric Buenrostro, him and I coded it. We were able to, because you can actually put some code on it, or you can use something called Autocrat to run certificates for you. If you need more information on that, please email me because I do have some step-by-step PDF instructions on how to use Autocrat. So I can send that out to you, but you'll need to email me so I know who I'm sending it to.
Okay.
Good question, though. Obviously, you liked it. Hey, cool. Awesome.
So, the YouTube Meet. Oh, I put the wrong YouTube link on there. Let me put the correct YouTube link. Hold on. Just...
Hi, I was just wondering, my Google Classroom doesn't have the email guardian option, and I've checked in a couple of different ones. Is it something that I have to add? And I even went to that little
Went to the settings, and it's not there?
and it didn't even have an option there.
Okay, Miss Stephanie, what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to email me.
Okay.
And I will get into the admin console and I will make sure you are in the proper group because I think that's what the problem is. Sometimes people slip out of our groups. It's a technology thing. Things happen. It's made by imperfect people, so it's not always going to be 100% perfect. But I'll make sure that you're in that group, and I will email you as soon as I get that taken care of for you. So if you'll just send me an email, and I apologize for asking everybody to send me an email, but there's so many of you and only one of me, and I'm not going to remember names or emails, and I don't have anything to write with today because I was just going to be in here doing this. So if you have questions or anything, I promise I answer email pretty quickly, and I will get back to you on that. Yes, Miss Stephanie, I will do that right away.
Thank you so much.
Let's see, I was wondering if it's more effective to keep all students in one class or to create individual classes for each section of the same subject that I teach. I would probably keep everybody into a class and then set them up like within the groups, assigning specific students certain things. And that way you would know, okay, I've got these 3 kids here and they're going to do this assignment and I'm going to send it to them. And that way everybody's still in one area. Otherwise you're going to have to jump out of one classroom and into another, unless that's something that you're very comfortable in doing. For me, I would like it all in one. So that way I can kind of go back and see who needs what.
Ma'am, for the certificate, if we fill it out, do we get it back in email or how do we get the certificate?
Yes, ma'am. What's going to happen is if you fill out that form and the minute that you hit submit, it's going to start to create it and you should get it within about 5-6 minutes and it's going to have a certificate. It's going to be a PDF that will have your name on it. I believe it has your campus on it. It has today's date on it. It is signed by my boss, Shelly Smallwood, and myself. And then it's also going to send you a PDF badge that has Google Classroom Basics on it. It'll have your name and today's date.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? I really appreciate you all taking some time out of your summer schedule to be here. We will be offering these sessions every Monday, and it won't be the same sessions. You'll need to kind of go into Eduphoria and check them out. They're all called Mini Mondays.